The first thing I said when I started reading Jinx chapter 72 was, that's why Jaekyung drinks milk every day. Because we literally get the reason in the first few scenes of the newest chapter, seeing him like that. So small and fragile did something to me. It's so unusual and kinda super sad. In general, this chapter was heartbreaking and not easy to digest. I just knew that Jaekyung had a horrible backstory and already mentioned it several times, but actually seeing it is something else. Actually, Jaekyung's wealth is for real self-made, and after this chapter and this piece of backstory, a lot of things make sense now. Though his actions are not excused by his messed up past, but it's easier to understand a lot of things now. I bet this is only the tip of the iceberg by what the coach is telling Kim Dan, because what exactly happened to his dad to be a former boxer, only that his career went downhill? How could his mother just leave Jaekyung, her son, with such a brutal dad? What happened that Jaekyung broke contact with the coach and left for Seoul? Our boy is mysterious and suspicious AF. Naturally, he'll get mad and suspect Kim Dan for being a traitor without hearing his side of the story first. He never had someone he could fully trust and lean on and who wasn't after his money or wanted to see his downfall. Though his attitude is most of the time passive-aggressive, let's not forget that although he's not treating Kim Dan as a green flag, he still tried to help in his weird way since he doesn't any other way. He helped with his debt and got him out of his home in early chapters. He even cursed at Kim Dan's home how filthy it is. But Jaekyung, my boy, let's not forget where you came from. Do you get triggered or reminded of your home back then? Is Kim Dan like a mirror to your past? We also know why Jaekyung has a soft spot for elderly people, because perhaps they always were the one that treated him good, like the coach and the nice woman who gave cooked food to him. Let's not forget how gentle and respectful he treats Kim Dan's grandma and Kim Dan's landlord. It's crazy to see how Jaekyung's past affected him. Not only drinking milk, but also using perfume in order to not smell again. Also, what's if he barely got any home-cooked food after leaving the gym, and therefore being super happy when Kim Dan cooked for him? I mean, look at his reaction. We don't know yet when his mother left and what kind of relationship they had and if she cooked. And also, here I mentioned several times and wondered what's with his parents, and why there is no one else except for Team Black members, who sadly some of them left him alone after losing his winning streak. What do you think? Does Jaekyung have contact with his mother? And does his rough behavior and attitude towards Kim Dan comes from his past, because he didn't learn it any other way since he got treated without any kind of softness by others? Fact is, this man experienced horrible things from a young age that left him really traumatized until present. He never really experienced love or affection and rejects anyone who tries to get close to him. Also, perhaps he's expecting to get oneself together, because literally that's what he had to do and was able to do on his own, so that he's a champion who swims in wealth and a big home and fancy cars, though deep down his heart is still lonely. To be honest, I sincerely hope that Jaekyung's backstory isn't told by the coach completely, though I know that Jaekyung wouldn't tell it Kim Dan on his own. But I'd prefer it because, in my opinion, I think it would give them a more personal touch to their relationship, but we will see. As I already mentioned, I think for now we will only get the tip of the iceberg of Jaekyung's story. It's no coincidence that we learn about his past only in chapter 72. What else related to his backstory is there that hadn't been unfolded yet? For now, let's have a look at the past thoughts, theories, and predictions on chapter 72 video and see what did occur and what could be important for future chapters. So the first possibility was about the coach telling Kim Dan about Jaekyung's past and explain why he was so ruthless, since it was how chapter 71 ended. It was said that he gets on our nerves most of the time, so it's only fair to learn about his past. Boy oh boy, I wasn't ready for getting my heart broken after we got crumbles of his past in chapter 72, so all of this came true. The second possibility was about not only seeing Kim Dan and coach talk to each other, but also see how Jaekyung is doing with his fever and cold. Is Kim Dan able to visit Jaekyung after his night shift? Will he even went there since Jaekyung said they could not sleep together for now? We all know that deep down Kim Dan does still care for Jaekyung because that's his nature and he's just a soft-hearted person with a lot of empathy for not always the right people. Sadly, this didn't occur in chapter 72, but I wouldn't say it's wrong for now. Because, in my opinion, it's still a possibility for future chapters. Let's not forget that Kim Dan is on his night shift. Anytime he has to go back home. The third possibility was about Jaekyung having a nightmare. About his past because of his fever and after seeing the director that stirred up old memories. Also, it was about Jaekyung being a child who always got overpowered, to never lose again or feel that miserable. Well, that's wild, because it's what partly happened. We learned that Jaekyung was really small and fragile and got bullied by others. He promised to get wealthy, but he didn't have a nightmare. But as before, I wouldn't argue that that's unrealistic and think this is something that still can happen in future chapters. Or what do you think? So for the upcoming chapter 73, the predictions might be not too different from before, since in my opinion, they're just realistic. Firstly, since we waited over 70 chapters for Jaekyung's backstory, we will get a continuation of Coach telling Kim Dan about Jaekyung's past and how he was back that as a kid and an amateur boxer. Will the chapter continue with something about his mom, since it's how it ended and now that she was mentioned? Or is this something the Coach will not go into any further and we will get back into the present time of both of them sitting together in this room at the hospital at night? Secondly, what if the Coach won't continue to tell Kim Dan about Jaekyung's past and won't go on any deeper about Jaekyung's mother, so Kim Dan will be left wondering about her? It would be something that would linger on his mind and perhaps later in this story will be told by Jaekyung himself. That would be crazy, but to me, realistic, because somehow I've got the feeling that the relationship to his mother and what happened between them is very crucial for the plot. Thirdly, it is possible, as in possibility number 2, Kim Dan and the Coach will stop talking about Jaekyung, so that Kim Dan got glimpses of Jaekyung's past and we will either see Jaekyung struggling, perhaps even with a nightmare, or whether Kim Dan is going to visit Jaekyung. Don't mind my deluluness, but I've got the feeling that this is still a valid possibility, since Kim Dan noticed Jaekyung's state. But what do you think? What do you think is likely to happen? As always, I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below.